Reborn, I changed universities, stopped blindly chasing him, and claimed the life I truly deserve. Chapter 1, The Price of Blind Love. The moment the accusation left Ethan's lips, everything inside me shattered. "You stole Emily's bracelet," he said coldly, his deep eyes void of any warmth, any trace of the boy I had spent years adoring. The words hit like a slap, leaving a sting worse than any physical pain. Around us, the hallway was filled with murmurs, students casting me judgmental glances. Some smirked, as if entertained by the scene, while others looked at me with pity, as if I truly were a thief. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. "Ethan, you know I didn't." My voice was barely above a whisper, yet I still hoped that he would at least hesitate, that he would remember all the times I had stood by his side without question. But he didn't. "Just return it, and we'll forget about this," he continued, his tone impatient now, as though I were a nuisance rather than the girl who had given up everything for him. I swallowed the lump in my throat, my heart pounding painfully against my ribs. "I never took it." Emily, who stood beside Ethan, let out a delicate sigh, as if burdened by my existence. "It's okay," she said, putting a hand on Ethan's arm. "Maybe she didn't mean to. Maybe she just really liked the bracelet and wanted to borrow it without asking." I flinched. She was playing the victim, twisting the narrative so subtly that anyone who didn't know better would believe her. "She's lying." My voice was firmer now, my hands trembling at my sides. "I never took anything from her. I don't even." "Enough." Ethan's voice cut through my words like a blade. His expression was unreadable, but his stance was clear. He was choosing her over me. My breath hitched. How many years had I spent following him like a shadow, giving up opportunities just to stay close, smiling even when he ignored me, hoping, praying, that one day he would turn and finally see me. But he never had. And now, when it truly mattered, he wouldn't even listen. "Ethan," my voice wavered as I took a small step forward, one last desperate attempt. "Do you really think I would do this? Do you really believe I would steal?" His jaw tightened. "Emily has no reason to lie." "And I do?" The unspoken words echoed in my mind. The hallway felt smaller, the air thinner, my own pulse roaring in my ears. I had always thought that if I stayed by his side long enough, he would eventually realize my love. But now, standing here, accused and humiliated, I finally saw the truth. He had never once looked at me the way he looked at her. The realization burned like acid. Emily reached into her bag, then gasped. "Oh," she said with a sheepish laugh, pulling out the bracelet, "it was here all along." For a moment, silence hung in the air. And then, whispers. Some people laughed under their breath. A few shook their heads and walked away. But Ethan, he didn't even look relieved. He looked annoyed. "That was careless, Emily," he said, not even sparing me a glance. Careless. That was all this was to him. Not a betrayal. Not a moment that had ruined whatever faith I had left in him. Just an inconvenience. The last fragile thread inside me snapped. I took a slow breath, forcing back the tears burning behind my eyes. I had wasted enough of my life waiting for Ethan to see me. No more. With the weight of years pressing down on me, I turned around and walked away, without another word, without looking back. If I had known then that I would die not long after, still holding on to the pain of this moment, I would have never wasted so much time on him. But fate had given me a second chance. And this time, I would never let Ethan be the center of my world again. Chapter 2, The Second Chance. The first thing I felt was cold. A deep, biting cold that settled into my bones, making my skin prickle. My eyelids fluttered open, and for a moment, my vision blurred. My head pounded, a dull ache spreading across my temples as if I had just woken up from a nightmare. Or maybe, from a past life. Memories surged forward in sharp, fragmented pieces, the accusation, Ethan's cold stare, Emily's feigned innocence. The suffocating pain of betrayal, the weight of my wasted years. And then, the darkness. The end. But now, I was here. Breathing. Alive. My eyes darted around the familiar room, my heart racing. The walls were still the soft beige color I had chosen when I was 16. My study desk sat in the corner, neat and untouched. The window was slightly open, allowing the morning light to stream in, the scent of freshly cut grass wafting in with the breeze. This was my room. In my childhood home. I sucked in a sharp breath, my hands trembling as I reached for my phone on the nightstand. The screen lit up, and my chest tightened. Year 20XX. I had gone back. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms as the weight of my second chance sank in. I had wasted my last life chasing a man who had never once turned back for me. I had thrown away my dreams, my pride, my very identity, just to be near him. And in the end, what had it given me? Humiliation. Despair. Death. Not this time. This time, I would not follow him. Chapter 3, A Different Path. The sound of birds chirping outside filled the silence of my room as I scrolled through my phone, the tension in my chest slowly easing. University applications open today. I exhaled, my grip tightening around the device. In my past life, I had chosen University B simply because Ethan had. I had thrown away my first choice, my own ambitions, just to be close to him. But now? I tapped the screen and searched for University A, the school I had once dreamed of attending. It was farther away, in a different city, but it had one of the best programs in my field. I clicked on the application form, my fingers shaking slightly as I began filling it out. Name. Birth date. High school. Intended major. With every word I typed, it felt as if I was severing an invisible thread that had once tied me to Ethan. By the time I submitted the application, my heart was racing. It was real now. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the confirmation email. Relief mixed with something unfamiliar, pride. For once, I had made a decision that was entirely my own. But I knew this was just the beginning. At school, things were bound to play out differently. Ethan and Emily were still there. The past would try to repeat itself. But this time, I would not let them dictate my life. I would not be fooled by Ethan's false kindness. I would not fall for Emily's manipulations. I had been reborn to change everything. And I would. Chapter 4, The Distance Grows. Anna sat at her desk, eyes fixed on the textbook in front of her. The numbers and formulas blurred slightly, but she forced herself to focus. Her pen tapped lightly against the page as she reread the same problem for the third time. Her mind wanted to wander, to memories she refused to entertain. The way Ethan used to call her name lazily from the living room, expecting her to drop everything to fetch him a drink. The way she used to linger in the hallway, waiting for him to return from class, hoping he'd glance her way. How pathetic she had been. Anna clenched her jaw, tightening her grip on the pen. Not anymore. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. If there was one thing she had learned from her past life, it was that she could not afford to waste time on people who did not value her. Instead of following Ethan around campus, she spent her weekends locked in her room, studying tirelessly. When her classmates went out to parties, she stayed behind, pouring her energy into self-improvement. Late at night, when exhaustion settled into her bones, she reminded herself. This is for me. Not for Ethan. Not for anyone else. For me. And as the weeks passed, she noticed something strange. Ethan wasn't used to her absence. He didn't seek her out, not yet. But she caught glimpses of confusion on his face when she didn't show up at their usual study spot. When she walked past him in the hallway, offering only a polite nod instead of her usual bright smile, his brows furrowed ever so slightly. She wondered when he would realize she was slipping away. Chapter 5, Leaving Without Looking Back. The day Ethan brought Emily home, Anna felt nothing. Not anger. Not sorrow. Nothing. She stood by the window, watching as they stepped out of the car together. Ethan was speaking to Emily, a small smile on his lips. The same one he used to give her. In her past life, this moment had shattered her. She had locked herself in her room, crying for hours, heartbroken that he had chosen Emily so openly. She had hoped, foolishly, desperately, that he might still look back. That he might still care. Now? Anna turned away from the window and picked up her suitcase. She had already made her decision. Her new apartment wasn't large, but it was hers. A fresh start. A life untangled from Ethan and Emily's presence. She packed her things methodically, placing books, clothes, and small trinkets into neatly arranged boxes. The room she had spent years in, waiting, hoping, was now nothing more than an empty shell. By the time Ethan stepped inside, laughing at something Emily had said, Anna was already gone. Chapter 6, A Life of Her Own. The first night in her new place was quiet. Too quiet. Anna sat on the floor, sipping tea from an old ceramic mug. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the apartment. She exhaled slowly, letting the silence settle around her. This was what freedom felt like. No more waiting for Ethan to come home. No more pretending not to notice the way his eyes always sought Emily first. No more lingering in spaces where she was unwanted. She had reclaimed her life. And now, it was hers to shape. As she stared out the window at the city lights, a thought flickered through her mind. Would Ethan even notice she was gone? Chapter 7, The Absence Begins to Sting. Ethan sat in the library, his foot tapping restlessly against the carpeted floor. His eyes scanned the quiet space, his fingers mindlessly flipping through the pages of a book he had no intention of reading. She wasn't here. Again. For weeks, Anna had been missing from all the familiar places. The library, where she used to sit by the window, poring over her textbooks. The cafe near campus, where she always ordered the same caramel latte and smiled at him whenever he walked in. Even the hallways, where she used to linger, waiting for a chance to talk to him. Gone. He had never noticed before how much space she occupied in his life, until she wasn't there anymore. Looking for someone? Emily's voice broke through his thoughts. Ethan glanced up. She was standing beside his table, arms crossed, a knowing smirk on her lips. No, he said quickly, snapping the book shut. Just studying. Emily's eyes flickered with something unreadable, but she didn't push. Instead, she slid into the seat across from him, launching into a conversation about an upcoming event. Ethan nodded absent-mindedly, but his mind was elsewhere. Why did it feel like something was missing? Chapter 8, The Life She Built Without Him. Anna had never felt more at peace. Her new university was everything she had hoped for, challenging, exciting, and full of opportunities she never would have taken before. She spent her time studying harder than ever, but not out of desperation to keep up with someone else. This time, it was for herself. She joined clubs, met new people, and explored passions she had once abandoned for Ethan's sake. On Friday nights, instead of waiting for Ethan's text, she attended poetry readings with friends. On weekends, instead of staying home to be available if he needed her, she traveled to nearby towns, collecting experiences like souvenirs. And the best part? She no longer cared what Ethan thought of her choices. Anna smiled as she walked across campus, enjoying the crisp autumn air. Her phone buzzed with a message from one of her new friends, inviting her to a weekend study session. This was her life now, one she built without Ethan in it. And she had no regrets. Chapter 9, Searching for Ghosts. Ethan wasn't sure when it started. The uneasy feeling. The restless nights. The nagging thought that something wasn't right. He found himself walking past Anna's old dorm, pausing outside as if she might suddenly appear. He scanned the campus grounds, expecting to see her familiar figure, head buried in a book, lost in her own world. But she was never there. He told himself it didn't matter. Anna had always been a background presence, sweet, loyal, and predictable. She had followed him everywhere, her devotion unwavering. So why did it bother him now that she was gone? One evening, as he sat with Emily at their usual cafe, he caught himself glancing at the door. A ridiculous part of him expected Anna to walk in, flashing him that warm, hopeful smile. But she never did. Emily noticed. "You've been acting strange lately," she said, stirring her drink. Distracted. "I'm fine," Ethan replied, too quickly. Emily tilted her head, studying him. Then, after a moment, she said, "Anna's not here anymore, you know." Something about the way she said it sent an uncomfortable jolt through him. Because for the first time, he realized, Emily was right. Anna was gone. And she wasn't coming back. Chapter 10, The First Signs of Regret. Ethan never thought he would miss Anna. But as the days turned to weeks, the absence became impossible to ignore. He found himself searching for her in the places she used to frequent. The library. The cafe. Even the small corner of campus where she used to sit under the tree, scribbling in her notebook. Nothing. It was as if she had disappeared completely. One evening, as he passed by her old dorm, he saw one of her former roommates stepping out. On impulse, he stopped her. "Hey," he said. "Do you know where Anna is?" The girl blinked in surprise. "She moved out." His chest tightened. "Moved out?" She nodded. "Yeah. Didn't she tell you?" "She transferred." The words hit him harder than expected. Transferred. She had left. Completely. Without a word. Ethan swallowed, forcing a casual tone. "Do you know where she went?" The girl hesitated. "I think. University A?" University A. She had chosen a completely different path, one that didn't include him. Ethan stood frozen as she walked away, her words echoing in his mind. Anna had really left. And for the first time, it dawned on him. He had lost something he never realized he wanted. Chapter 11, The Chase Begins. Ethan sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. The city lights outside blurred as his thoughts raced. Anna was gone. Not just from his campus, not just from their shared spaces, but from his life entirely. And somehow, the realization cut deeper than he ever expected. It wasn't supposed to be this way. For as long as he could remember, Anna had always been there, waiting in the background, looking at him with unwavering devotion. She had followed him to University B, molded her dreams around his, made choices that revolved around his presence. He had always known she cared. He had taken it for granted. Now, she was gone, and he felt the emptiness she left behind like a wound that refused to heal. Regret takes root. Ethan had spent the past few weeks searching for her, but no one seemed to know much about Anna's new life. The more he asked, the more he realized how little he had actually known about her. What were her dreams? Her ambitions? What made her happy? He used to think he knew. But had he ever really asked? Now, Anna wasn't just absent from his life, she had built an entirely new one without him. And that truth unsettled him. The moment he had heard she transferred to University A deep, nagging feeling had taken root in his chest. He thought back to their past. The way she used to light up whenever he acknowledged her presence. The way she followed him without hesitation, changing her plans just to fit into his world. The way she had once looked at him like he was the center of her universe. He had dismissed it all. And worse, he had hurt her. The theft accusation. The memory resurfaced like a slap to the face. He had stood by as Emily accused Anna, letting the words linger in the air like poison. He had seen the betrayal in Anna's eyes, the silent plea for him to defend her. He hadn't. He hadn't cared enough. But now, it was different. Anna had moved forward, and he was the one left behind. Searching for her. Ethan pulled out his phone, staring at the screen. He had checked her social media accounts countless times, but there were no updates. No clues. Anna had always been an open book before, sharing pictures, posting updates about her studies, responding to every comment. Now, she was silent. He wasn't used to being the one left in the dark. Frustrated, he leaned back in his seat, exhaling sharply. Maybe she had blocked him. The thought stung more than it should have. For the first time in his life, he realized, Anna was no longer chasing him. Now, he was the one chasing her. And he had no idea if she would ever stop to look back. Chapter 12, Letting Go and Moving Forward. Ethan finally spotted Anna on the University A campus one afternoon. The moment his eyes landed on her, he froze. She was standing in the courtyard, laughing at something her friend said. The sunlight hit her face, making her seem radiant, completely at ease in this new world she had built for herself. She looked happy. But not in the way he remembered. Gone was the timid girl who had once waited for his attention, whose eyes had always searched for his approval. The Anna in front of him now carried herself with quiet confidence. She no longer lingered in the background, she was at the center of her own life, finally embracing it fully. And then it hit him. She didn't need him anymore. The unspoken goodbye. Ethan took a hesitant step forward, unsure of what he was even going to say. He had rehearsed 1,000 different conversations in his mind, apologies, explanations, desperate attempts to mend what had been broken. But when Anna turned slightly and met his gaze, something shifted inside him. She didn't look away, nor did she show any bitterness or pain. There was no lingering sadness, no desperate longing. Just quiet acknowledgement. The realization settled in his chest like a bittersweet ache. She had moved on. And maybe, for the first time, he needed to let her go. Closure. Summoning his courage, Ethan walked up to her. Anna's friends slowly drifted away, sensing the tension between them. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than he intended. Anna tilted her head slightly, waiting. For a moment, he wasn't sure what to say. All the words he had held on to seemed meaningless now. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Anna blinked, surprised. For what? For everything, he admitted. For not believing you when I should have. For taking you for granted. For not realizing how much you mattered until it was too late. She was silent for a moment, and then she smiled, not the bright, hopeful smile she used to give him, but a gentle, understanding one. I appreciate that, Ethan, she said. But I stopped waiting for your apology a long time ago. The words weren't meant to hurt, but they still stung. She had healed without him. And that was okay. A new beginning. They stood there for a moment, both knowing this was their closure. Ethan took a deep breath and nodded. I'm glad you're happy, Anna. She nodded back. I hope you find your happiness too. And just like that, the moment passed. Anna turned back to her friends, her laughter soon mixing with theirs as she walked away. Ethan stood there for a while, watching her disappear into the crowd. For the first time in a long time, he understood. Some people weren't meant to be together. Some love stories weren't meant to last forever. But that didn't mean they weren't meaningful. Taking one last deep breath, Ethan turned around and walked away, not in regret, but in acceptance. Anna had found the life she truly deserved. Now, it was time for him to do the same. The end.